As automotive enthusiasts, we throw around an awful lot of jargon, and each issue of Road and Track is packed with technical terminologies used to describe the driving experience. So if you've read terms like trail braking, opposite lock, heel and toe, drop throttle oversteer, and wondered what the heck these editors are talking about, I'm here today to fill in the blanks. I'm at Memphis International Raceway with 3 great cars to explain to you firsthand what all this racing jargon really means. The 3 cars we have here today represent the full breadth of Nissan's performance range: the new Altima, Nismo 370Z, and the new 2013 Nissan GT-R. The Altima is the family car, the 370Z is the cost-effective sports car, leaving the GT-R as the fully fledged supercar. All have different tendencies and strengths, making them the perfect lineup to explore our racing terms, and at the same time discover what makes each car tick. We brought these 3 cars here for a reason. They all have different transmission, engines, chassis design, and that gives them all very different handling characteristics. In the magazine, we often describe these as oversteer, understeer, or maybe even neutral. You can't read about race cars without them mentioning the racing line. So what does that mean? Well, it's pretty simple. It's the fastest way through a bend. We basically start from the outside, down to the inside, and right back out to the far outside. And the reason we do that is to open up the corner so we can go through it as fast as we possibly can. To a proper racing line is clipping your apex. Now what is an apex? Well, an apex is often but not always the geometric center of the turn. If you're watching a race, you'll often notice it by the car coming down, clipping the rumble strip and then coming out. And where it clips that curbing, that is the apex. Not all turns are created equally, so you might adopt a late or an early apex depending on the particular bend. So what is understeer? Well, understeer is where you turn into a corner and the front doesn't want to go there and it keeps sliding straight on. Front-wheel drive cars have a tendency to understeer, but it could be weight distribution too. You may have noticed that the Nissan Altima here is a little out of place. So why did we bring it? Well, it's front-wheel drive. It's a family sedan. It's built with safety and comfort in mind. And that effectively means when we go into the turn, it's going to understeer like a pig. Your front wheels are used for steering, and it's obviously important that they have traction. The nice thing with understeer, however, is it's the easiest of all slides to correct. A little lift off the gas, it's all you need to do, the car will be back under control. Alright, so we're going to go into this turn, and we're going to try and induce an understeer. I really don't need to do very much in a car like this. I turn in, and as soon as I get back on the gas, look at the understeer, it just keeps sliding. I've got all that lock in the car. Now the Nissan Altima has a 2.5 litre engine. It produces 182 brake horsepower. It's obviously not really at home here on the racetrack, but you know what, it handles itself pretty well, and that's what always amazes me about today's production cars that aren't necessarily built for the racetrack. They generally handle pretty well. We've learnt that front-wheel drive cars like to understeer, but rear-wheel drive cars like this Nismo 370Z love to oversteer. Oversteer goes by many names. Could be called loose or drifting, power sliding. So what is oversteer? Well, oversteer is simply where the rear wheels have less grip than the front and the back slides around. Now this car is exceptionally prone to that because it's rear wheel drive, so the rear tyres are going to slip and make the car slide out into the oversteer. The Nismo 370Z has a 350 horsepower V6 engine. It also produces 276 pound-feet of torque. So with all that torque going to the rear wheels, it really makes the car prone to oversteer. Every time you get on the gas, the back of the car is going to want to slide around. The way you control oversteer is by a term that you've probably read called opposite lock. And that's where you turn the wheel the opposite direction to catch the slide before you crash, where you have to turn right to turn left. Whenever the car's out of control, you're probably going to have to use opposite lock to bring it back under control. Now here's one of my favourite vocabulary terms, power slide. All a power slide is middle of the turn, hit the gas pedal, that brings the back end out of the rear wheel drive car into an oversteer, and then we keep it floored and just hold that slide the whole way around the rest of the bend. And it's also a hell of a lot of fun. you may have read about is drop throttle oversteer. And effectively what that is where we introduce oversteer ourselves by getting off the gas aggressively mid-corner. That shifts all the weight to the front of the car, meaning the back has none and the back will slide around. Unlike the Altima, this car was clearly designed with performance in mind. It works great on a racetrack. It's got firmer suspension, it has less body roll, the car is more well balanced. Even though it has a tendency to oversteer, the balance is still very good. We've got a 6-speed manual gearbox. It really is a great driver's car. So as we start driving this car hard to really see what it's like, you can immediately tell that it's really pretty fast. The 6-speed manual gearbox has really pretty tight, narrow throws. It really feels very good, and downshifting is extremely easy. And as we get to the brakes, they're pretty aggressive, but they work really, really well. And the big tires on this car provide a mountain of grip. But this is the Nismo 370Z. It's got special suspension, just tweaked to make it handle a little bit better on the track, get rid of some of the body roll, handle some of the bumps of this Memphis International Raceway just that little bit better. See the back end coming around, but it's not uncontrollable. It really does it pretty well. In some ways you have more fun in these kind of cars because they're not quite as refined, and that's something that we really enjoy. Big oversteer like that, and yet you can hang on to it. It's great fun. This is probably one of the most fun cars that you can actually drive for the money. I mean, for $43,000 for a car that's this fast, and you can have this much enjoyment, you can have it sliding really on the edge. It's just somehow less refined than many of the top sports cars, and that's what makes cars like these so great to take to the racetrack and just enjoy and have fun. The lack of technology really makes it quite exciting. On the racetrack, it's all about being smooth and consistent, and with this Nismo 370Z 6-speed manual gearbox, you're going to have to utilize a technique known as heel and toe. Heel and toe is when you blip the throttle during a downshift to ensure that the engine speed matches the transmission speed. So let's have a look at a gear change if we don't utilize the heel and toe technique and see how rough it really is. You can hear with the aggressiveness and how the rear tires completely lock. That's simply because I hadn't matched the engine speed with the transmission speed, so everything was out of sync and the car just didn't like it. And if you do that mid-corner, the rear tires, when they lock, are going to put you into a spin, and there's going to be no recovering from that. You are going to crash. A proper heel and toe technique gives you a nice smooth shift into the lower gear. Like so, just a little bit of a blip. Now, while most cars are either oversteer or understeer, there are a few rare gems that might be neutral, and neutral is a term that's used when the car effectively four-wheel drifts. It's perfectly balanced, and the Nissan GT-R is one of those very rare cars. So what makes the GT-R handle so well? Well, it's got a fantastic all-wheel drive system with torque vectoring to help rotate the car in the middle of the turn. They spent countless hours on the Nürburgring perfecting the suspension balance to make it handle in the most pristine of fashions. It's really got every kind of technology that you could want. It's got a dual clutch paddle shift gearbox. It's even got data telemetry to help you drive faster. It's really like driving a PlayStation. Right now we're driving around the track really pretty fast, and what's amazing is how great the brakes are. I mean, they stop on a dime, and you tie that in with the incredible paddle shifts and the dual clutch. The gear shifts are instantaneous, and that's really the beauty of the dual clutch system. There's no torque loss whatsoever between shifting. The brakes are fantastic, they really are. And the grip level is just kind of mesmerizing. And then of course you just get to the power, and this thing just keeps going. It really inspires you with confidence. It's just that neutral balance that we've talked about is just so nice. But even going into the turn at 100 miles an hour, it grips so well. But what's incredible with this car is it does so at half the price of things like Ferraris and Lamborghinis, and yet it's actually a little bit faster, and it probably handles as well too. The GT-R has massive Brembo brake calipers and huge rotors, and they perform extremely well, making this the perfect car on the racetrack to use a technique known as trail braking. Is where we brake later and utilize a little bit of brake right the way down to apex to keep the front end down, give it more grip, and help the car rotate around the bend, which allows us to drive through the corner faster. It's a really effective way of combating understeer. So let's try trail braking in real speed. It's going to allow me to brake later, utilize the brake right the way down to apex, and that helps keep the nose down, get the car to rotate, and allow me to get back to the gas sooner and get out of the corner quicker. Another braking term you might have read about is threshold braking, and that is effectively where we turn ourselves into the ABS system. What we do is you brake really hard to start with, but you have to bleed the pressure off the brake pedal to prevent the wheels from locking. But all the while, we've still got to maintain the maximum amount of pressure that we can get away with to stop in the most efficient manner. Mastering threshold braking is an important technique because it really is the fastest way to stop your car efficiently. The power plant on this car is really impressive. It's a 3.8 litre twin-turbo V6. It really is amazingly fast. It'll actually do 0 to 60, Nissan claims, in 2.7 seconds, which is one of the fastest cars on Earth. And how it accelerates so well, other than its incredible engine, is the fact that it's got a fantastic launch control system that really helps you explode off the blocks like Usain Bolt. So let's see if this thing will really do a 0 to 60 dash in 2.7 seconds. Put it in launch control, hold our foot on the brake, hammer the gas to 4,000 RPM, and go. This thing is incredibly fast. You've never felt anything like it. I think it pretty well accomplishes being one of the fastest cars to 60 of all time. I hope I've helped you understand some of the performance driving and racing terms that might have puzzled you in the past, perhaps made you feel a little bit more confident when you slide behind the wheel of your own car, whether it's your very first track day or just an enjoyable weekend drive. Next time you're flicking through your copy of Road and Track and you come across terms such as oversteer, understeer, now you'll know exactly what we're talking about. For Road and Track, I'm Alex Lloyd, but I've left my favourite word for last: burnout.